Hey everyone, this is one of those rare cases where I'm uploading 2 videos in one day. So if you haven't checked it out yet, check out my video from earlier about why the new 2025 Maverick EcoBoost has less horsepower than the previous model years. I felt like it was a pretty cool video, but I'll let you decide. So check it out when you can. All right, so for today's video, I'm going to be comparing some different fuels that are used primarily for internal combustion engine vehicles, but I will touch on electric and hybrid vehicles briefly. This whole video is going to be relatively quick because I want to encourage you to check this information out for yourself. Don't just take my word for it, but look it up. Do some research if this is a topic that interests you, and make sure that you're finding some information from different perspectives, because there's always going to be somebody who favors one type of fuel versus another, or one type of technology versus another. And in the energy sector, things can be very polarizing for some people. And so just make sure that you are getting a balanced view from the articles that you are reading or videos that you're watching, because I have seen some that are very much biased one way or the other. All right, so for the pros and cons of these various fuels, first one is diesel. I'm talking about the standard diesel refined from crude oil. So one of the pros to this is that it has some of the highest energy density, so the greatest amount of energy in 1 gallon or 1 liter of diesel fuel compared to multiple other types of fuel. That's a big plus. On the downside, when you are burning it in an engine, what happens is you end up getting a lot of soot and particulates and nitrous oxide and so forth, and that's very bad for human health and for the environment in general. The next fuel is going to be renewable diesel fuel. Renewable diesel fuel is very similar to standard diesel in that you can burn it in any diesel engine because of the way that the process works. It essentially is a highly refined, highly chemically changed biodiesel, if you will. Now there's more to it than that, but that's a quick summary. So the pro behind this is that any diesel engine can use it. The con is that when you are using that renewable diesel, you have to keep in mind that there was a lot of chemicals, perhaps very negative, harmful chemicals, and a lot of production hours and energy being used to produce it. All right, the third kind of fuel is biodiesel. Now, biodiesel is what you might call lightly refined, biologically produced oils. So like vegetable oil from cooking up something with deep frying. That oil can be filtered and refined, and in that process you don't have a product, a final product, quite like the other standard diesel or even renewable diesel. So it tends to have more, here's the downside, it tends to have more of a thick consistency and can gel up in extremely cold weather. So that's a downside there. Also keep in mind, none of these things are endless in their supply, and so you have to factor that in with any of these fuels. Okay. Now we're going to switch gears, so to speak, and talk about gasoline, or in some parts of the world it's called petrol. So for gasoline, that is a plus in that in many areas gasoline is less costly than diesel. It also tends to burn more cleanly than petroleum-based diesel. And besides that, It is readily available at gas stations or petrol stations across the world. All right, so some downsides are, of course, again, it's a limited resource to a certain extent. Also, it's going to be still producing a measurable amount of soot, particulates, harmful gases, and so forth for those tailpipe emissions. All right, the next one is ethanol. So for ethanol, it's got the great advantage as to being one of the cleanest burning fuels for an internal combustion engine. Cleaner than standard diesel, cleaner than standard gasoline, and it can be produced from renewable sources such as various crops. Now the downside is, yes, that would be taking up a certain amount of land that would have been able to produce food crops. However, there is a lot of land out there, and if this is done properly to where the environment is kept clean as much as reasonably possible and so forth, there can be some great advantages. However, with all of these fuels, there's going to be some refining process, and that takes energy, and that takes time and labor and so forth. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the energy within ethanol comes from the sun, and the sun is a renewable energy source per se. Renewable as in the sun is rising and setting each day. But keep in mind, you could use that solar energy for something else, solar power, solar heat, whatever. All right, so a lot of factors to consider. There's much more you can find out there on the internet and other resources. Also keep in mind, ethanol has one of the lowest energy densities. So if you have diesel on the one hand, that's going to be high energy density, some of the most energy per gallon or per liter. Ethanol is going to have some of the least energy per gallon or per liter. Okay, the next thing that I want to address is the unusual or exotic type fuels. There are a lot out there. There can be compressed natural gas, there can be synthetic fuels, and other types of unusual fuels, hydrogen. Each of those things have their pros and cons. They haven't really caught on that much, and from what I have seen, they tend to be a lot of input in finances and labor and processing for not that much of a significant benefit for the output on a wide scale. But as things go, I suspect that will get better in the future, at least for those more viable fuel sources. And then I wanted to touch briefly on hybrid vehicles. I think that's a fantastic idea in a lot of ways, because where the engine is weak, the electric motor for the hybrid system is strong, and vice versa. So I think that's a great idea. It just has to be applied in the right way without overutilizing resources for batteries or any other technology for the hybrid vehicle. And then for electric vehicles, I think that's a great idea, except so many of the resources for electric vehicles are not properly refined in an environmentally human-friendly way. And I feel like we need to take that slow enough to do it right, and then there can be a great benefit. And I'm looking forward to future battery technology. I think that's really exciting. All right, thank you everyone for watching this video. If you haven't yet, check out some of my previous videos and maybe subscribe down in there. That would be excellent. And I'd like to hear some feedback on each of my videos, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye-bye for now.